They say you never really know someone until you're about to marry them. I thought that was just something people said to scare you, like telling kids about the boogeyman so they'd behave. But standing in the middle of what was supposed to be the happiest celebration of my life, watching my fiancée laugh at something her ex-boyfriend whispered in her ear, I realized some cliches exist for a reason. My name is Ethan Miller, 31, a structural engineer from Dallas, Texas. I design buildings that can withstand hurricanes, earthquakes, and pretty much any natural disaster you can think of. Turns out I couldn't design a relationship strong enough to withstand a man named Tyler Johnson. Madison and I met 4 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She was this stunning blonde PR executive with intelligent eyes and a laugh that made you feel like you were in on some private joke. By our third date, I knew she was special. By our first anniversary, we were living together. And 8 months ago, on a cliff overlooking the Gulf Coast at sunset, she said yes to my proposal. That should have been our story, simple, sweet, and headed for forever. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. It was a Tuesday evening when everything started to unravel. I came home from work to find Madison scrolling through her phone, feet tucked under her on our gray sectional, the one we'd spent 3 weekends shopping for because she insisted the energy had to be right. Hey, I confirmed the last few RSVPs for the engagement party, she said without looking up. Oh, and I invited Tyler. My keys dangled from my fingers, halfway to the ceramic bowl she'd bought specifically for them. Tyler, as in your ex-boyfriend Tyler? She finally glanced up, her expression casual, like she'd just mentioned picking up milk. Yeah, we've been talking again, and I thought it would be nice. He's back in town. I set my keys down carefully, feeling something twist in my stomach. Madison and Tyler had dated for 2 years before we met. I knew bits and pieces. They met in college, had a passionate relationship, but eventually broke up when he moved to New York for a job opportunity. She'd always described it as intense, but ultimately not right. Why would you invite your ex to our engagement party? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Madison rolled her eyes slightly. It's not a big deal, Ethan. We're adults. He's part of my past, and he's actually a nice guy. You might like him. I doubt that, I said, sitting across from her on the coffee table. Look, I'm not comfortable with this. Can you uninvite him? Her expression hardened. No, I already sent the invitation, and it would be unavoidably awkward to take it back. More awkward than having your ex at our engagement party? Ethan, she sighed, putting down her phone. I don't know why you're being so insecure about this. I'm marrying you, aren't I? That's not the point. It's about respect. She stood up, suddenly irritated. I don't owe you blind loyalty or cutting people out of my life. We're not even married yet. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Not the loyalty part, the not even married yet part, as if marriage was when real commitment began, not the years we'd already spent building a life together. What does that mean? I asked quietly. It means you're overreacting, she said, grabbing her phone and heading toward our bedroom. Tyler is coming to the party. End of discussion. I stayed seated, staring at the space she'd left. For the first time since I'd known her, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. The woman I thought I knew would never dismiss my concerns so casually. The Madison I fell in love with valued my feelings, respected my boundaries. This new Madison was someone else entirely. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her steady breathing. I replayed her words over and over. We're not even married yet. 5 simple words that had shattered something essential between us. I wondered what other surprises awaited me after we said, I do. The next morning, I decided to let it go, temporarily. We had a life together, a future planned. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Tyler really was just an old friend now. But deep down, I knew better. And what happened over the next few weeks only confirmed my worst fears. 3 days after our argument, I came home early from work. As I walked through the door, I heard Madison's laughter from our bedroom. That specific laugh she reserved for when something genuinely amused her. I moved quietly down the hallway. You always did know how to make me laugh, she was saying, her voice warm with affection. God, I've missed that. A pause, then. No, he's not home yet. Usually gets back around 7. Another pause. Next Thursday works. He has that dinner with clients, won't be home until late. We can grab drinks at that place we used to go to downtown. My blood ran cold. I backed away silently, went back to the front door, and closed it loudly. Madison, I'm home early! I heard scrambling in the bedroom, and when Madison emerged, her cheeks were flushed. Hey, what a nice surprise. Slow day at work? Something like that, I said, watching her carefully. Who were you talking to? Her eyes widened slightly before she controlled her expression. Just my mom, planning some mother-daughter shopping before the wedding. Lie number 1. Over the next few weeks, things got weirder. Madison was constantly on her phone, smiling at texts and turning the screen away when I walked by. One night as we sat watching a movie, her phone lit up with a message. Blue looks amazing on you, always has. Tyler, she quickly switched the screen off, but not before I caught a glimpse. He's commenting on your clothes now? I asked, feeling that twist in my stomach again. She shrugged. It's nothing, just friendly chat. Lie number 2. The next day I came home early again and heard Madison in our guest bathroom, the one she used for getting ready because it had better lighting. I don't know, Jess, she was saying to someone on the phone. The wedding's in a few months and I don't know if I'm ready, and seeing Tyler again has been complicated. A pause. No, it's not just nostalgia. He gets me in a way Ethan doesn't sometimes. He makes me feel alive again. I backed away silently, heart pounding. Later that evening, when she kissed me hello and asked about my day, I smiled and said everything was fine. But inside, something had shifted irreversibly. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay there thinking about the woman beside me, this person I'd trusted with my heart, my future, my everything. Who was she really? Had I ever known her at all? Or had I just fallen in love with a carefully constructed illusion? The next week brought more suspicious behavior. Madison started going out more often, claiming girls' nights or work events. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne. One night, she returned with a small bruise on her neck that she hurriedly covered with her hair when she caught me looking. Burned myself with the curling iron, she said before I could ask. Clumsy me. Lie number 3. I started checking her social media, something I'd never done before. There were no photos with Tyler, no obvious evidence of anything inappropriate. But there were subtle changes. She was posting more selfies, using filters she hadn't before, tagging locations around Dallas I'd never been to with her. Then I found it, a photo from 3 days ago at a rooftop bar downtown. Madison hadn't posted it, but she was tagged in the background by a mutual friend. There she was, sitting close to a man whose face was partially obscured, but whose profile was unmistakably Tyler's. Her expression was luminous, happier than I'd seen her look in months. The caption read, Throwback Thursday, some reunions are written in the stars, hashtag old flames, new sparks. I stared at that hashtag until the words blurred together. Hashtag old flames, new sparks. There it was, in black and white. Something was happening between them, right under my nose, with apparently everyone's knowledge but mine. 3 days before the engagement party, I met my best friend Ryan for drinks at our usual spot. Ryan and I had been friends since college, and he was going to be my best man. He was already at the bar when I arrived, nursing a whiskey. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting. Thanks, I said, sliding onto the stool beside him. You really know how to make a guy feel special. What's going on? Pre-wedding jitters? I ordered a drink and told him everything about Tyler, the texts, the phone conversation I'd overheard, the photo I'd found. Ryan listened, his expression growing more concerned. Have you talked to her about what you found? Not yet. I'm waiting to see what happens at the party. Man, that's a recipe for disaster, Ryan said, shaking his head. You need to confront this head on. And say what? Hey, I was eavesdropping on your private conversation and stalking you online. Besides, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they really are just friends. Ryan gave me a look that said he wasn't buying it, and neither was I. Just watch how she acts around him at the party, I said. Tell me if I'm crazy. You're not crazy, Ryan said quietly, but you might be in denial. He hesitated, then added, there's something else you should know. I didn't want to tell you because it seemed like hearsay, but a couple weeks ago, my girlfriend Megan saw them together. My heart sank. Where? At that new hotel bar downtown, the one with the fancy cocktails. They were in a corner booth, and according to Megan, it wasn't a casual catch-up between friends. There was touching, intimate conversations. At one point, she says Madison was crying and Tyler was wiping away her tears. I downed my drink in one go. Fantastic. So I'm officially the last to know my fiancé is having an emotional affair. Ryan flagged down the bartender and ordered another round. When the drinks arrived, he raised his glass to seeing the truth before saying, I do. Despite everything, I had to smile at that. Thanks for having my back. Always, he said. And listen, whatever happens at this party, remember you deserve someone who's all in, not someone with one foot out the door. The next morning, I woke to a text from Madison. Can't wait for tonight. Everyone's going to be so happy for us. I stared at the message, wondering how she could compartmentalize so completely. Was I missing something? Was I the crazy one here? The day of the engagement party arrived. I'd barely slept, barely eaten. Madison and I had been like ghosts passing through the same space, avoiding meaningful conversation. She'd been busy with last-minute party details, or so she claimed. I'd been busy preparing myself for what might be the end of everything I'd thought was certain. The engagement party was at Luciana's, an upscale Italian restaurant in Austin with a private terrace overlooking the city. Madison had spent weeks planning every detail, from the champagne to the centerpieces to the custom playlist. I joked once that she was putting more effort into the engagement party than some people put into their actual weddings. She hadn't found it funny. I arrived early to check the setup. The terrace was transformed with string lights, white roses, and photos of us throughout our relationship. It should have felt magical. Instead, I felt like I was walking through someone else's dream. As I examined one of the photos, Madison and me in Colorado last winter, snowflakes catching in her hair as she laughed up at me, I felt a presence beside me. She always photographs beautifully, doesn't she? I turned to find an older woman I recognized as Madison's mother's friend, Patricia. She had a champagne flute in hand despite the early hour. Yes, she does, I agreed politely. Patricia studied me, her eyes surprisingly sharp. You know, I've known Madison since she was a little girl. Always a romantic, always chasing the next big thrill. She took a sip of her champagne. Her mother was the same way, never satisfied. That's why she's on husband number 3. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. Patricia didn't seem to need a response. I remember when she dated that Tyler boy in college. Volatile, those two. Always breaking up, getting back together. The drama was exhausting just to watch. She gave me a pointed look. I was relieved when she found you. A steady man, a builder, someone who might finally anchor her. My stomach tightened. Tyler's coming tonight, actually. Patricia's eyebrows shot up. Is he now? Well, that should be interesting. She patted my arm. Keep your eyes open, dear. Madison has always had a weakness for pretty things that burn too bright. With that cryptic warning, she drifted away, leaving me more unsettled than before. Guests started arriving around 7. My parents, who had flown in from Chicago, Madison's mother and her husband from Houston, friends from work, college buddies, cousins I only saw at weddings and funerals. Everyone was smiling, congratulating me, asking about wedding plans. I smiled back, accepted hugs, and kept one eye on the entrance. Madison arrived at 7:30, looking stunning in a fitted blue dress, the same color as the text Tyler had commented on. She kissed me on the cheek, whispered, "You look handsome," and then was pulled away by her girlfriends. I watched her move through the crowd, graceful and charming, the perfect hostess. No one would ever guess that beneath that polished exterior was a woman capable of such deception. As I observed her laughing with her college roommate, I wondered how many other secrets she'd kept from me over our 4 years together. At 8 o'clock, I saw him, Tyler Johnson. He was tall, with the kind of effortless good looks that belonged in a men's fashion magazine. Dark hair, confident smile, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He scanned the crowd, spotted Madison, and his face lit up in a way that felt painfully intimate, like I was witnessing something private, something that didn't belong at my engagement party. Ryan appeared at my side with a fresh drink. That him? Yeah, I said, watching as Madison broke away from her conversation to greet Tyler with a lingering hug. Huh, Ryan said. What? Nothing, just not what I pictured. I took a long sip of my drink. What did you picture? I don't know. Someone less? Ken doll? Tyler handed Madison a small box, a gift, and she opened it right there, her face brightening with surprise and pleasure. She lifted out a delicate silver necklace and immediately turned, lifting her hair so he could fasten it around her neck. His fingers lingered on her skin a moment too long. I need another drink, I muttered. As the night progressed, I found myself in a surreal nightmare. Madison floated around the party, playing the perfect hostess, occasionally stopping to chat with me or introduce me to someone I hadn't met. But her eyes kept finding Tyler, and more than once I caught them in a corner, heads bent close, laughing about something private. What made it worse was how obvious it was to everyone else. I caught whispers, concerned glances in my direction, awkward attempts to engage me in conversation while Madison was with Tyler. My humiliation was public, on display for all our friends and family to witness. My mother cornered me by the dessert table. Ethan, is everything all right? You seem distracted. Just taking it all in, Mom, I lied. She patted my arm, then hesitated. That young man Madison's been talking to. Is he an old friend? Ex-boyfriend, actually. Her eyes widened slightly. I see. And you're comfortable with that? Not really, I admitted, but Madison insisted. My mother's lips thinned. Well, perhaps you two should have a conversation about boundaries before the wedding. If only she knew how far beyond boundary conversations we were. Across the room, Madison was touching Tyler's arm as she laughed at something he said. Her new necklace caught the light. Thanks, Mom, I said absently. By 10 o'clock, the whispers had become impossible to ignore. I wasn't the only one who'd noticed Madison's attention toward her ex. I overheard snippets of conversations. Didn't they date in college? The way she's looking at him. Poor Ethan. I retreated to the bar where I found Ryan in intense conversation with Patricia, Madison's mother's friend from earlier. They both fell silent when I approached. Don't stop on my account, I said, signaling the bartender for another scotch. Patricia gave me a sympathetic look. We were just discussing the unusual dynamics of tonight's gathering. You mean how my fiancée can't keep her eyes off her ex-boyfriend? Yeah, I noticed that too. Ryan winced. Maybe you should take her aside, talk to her. About what? How she's humiliating me at our own engagement party? I'm sure that will go over well. Patricia put her hand on my arm. I knew this would happen. I warned Liz, Madison's mother, when Madison told her that she was inviting Tyler. History has a way of repeating itself with that girl. Something in her tone made me pause. What do you mean? Patricia glanced around, then leaned closer. Madison was engaged once before. Did she ever tell you that? It was right after college. Nice boy named David. They'd been together 2 years when Tyler showed up at their engagement dinner. 3 weeks later, she'd broken things off with David and moved in with Tyler. The room seemed to tilt sideways. No, I said faintly. She never mentioned that. I'm not surprised, Patricia said. It wasn't her finest moment. Poor David was devastated. I looked across the room at Madison, my Madison, and tried to reconcile this new information with the woman I thought I knew. Why would she do this again? Why invite him if she knew what happened last time? Patricia sighed. Some people are addicted to drama, dear. They mistake chaos for passion. Madison's mother is the same way, can never be satisfied with a good, steady man. Always needs the thrill of the chase, the danger of the almost lost. Ryan put his hand on my shoulder. You okay, man? I wasn't, not even close. But before I could answer, a commotion near the center of the room caught everyone's attention. Madison was standing on a chair, champagne glass in hand, calling for everyone's attention. I'd like to make a toast, she called, her voice slightly too loud, her cheeks flushed. To my amazing fiancé, Ethan. All eyes turned to me. I forced a smile, feeling like my face might crack from the effort. Ethan is the most reliable, dependable man I've ever known, Madison continued, her words carefully enunciated in the way of someone who's had one too many drinks. He's always there, always exactly where he's supposed to be. You could set your watch by him. The compliments felt backhanded, empty. I saw confusion on some faces, pity on others. But before Ethan, Madison continued, there was someone else who taught me what passion really means. Her eyes found Tyler in the crowd. Someone who showed me how to live in the moment, to take risks, to feel everything. A horrified silence fell over the room. I felt as if I'd been turned to stone, unable to move, to speak, to breathe. Madison seemed oblivious to the tension. To past loves and future marriages, she declared, raising her glass higher. No one drank, no one moved. Then Tyler stepped forward, taking Madison's hand to help her down from the chair. I think that's enough champagne for you, he said, his voice low but carrying in the silence. Madison giggled, leaning against him. You always did know when to rein me in. That was the final straw. I walked forward, heart pounding, until I stood directly in front of them. Having fun? I asked, my voice steady despite the rage and humiliation burning through me. Madison blinked, as if just remembering I existed. Ethan, there you are. I was just telling everyone how wonderful you are. No, I said quietly. You were telling everyone how passionate your ex-boyfriend is, in case anyone missed the message you've been sending all night. The color drained from Madison's face. What? No, I was just... Save it, I cut her off. I've heard enough. We all have. I turned to address the stunned crowd of our friends and family. Thank you all for coming tonight. Unfortunately, I've just realized there won't be a wedding after all. Please enjoy the rest of the food and drinks. They're paid for, and it would be a shame to waste them. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the gathering. Madison grabbed my arm. Ethan, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me. I laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. I'm embarrassing you? That's rich, coming from the woman who just toasted her ex at our engagement party. You're overreacting, she hissed. It was just a silly toast. It wasn't just the toast, I said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. It was the secret meetings, the late-night texts, the lies about where you've been. Did you think I wouldn't notice, or did you just not care? Madison's face crumpled. Ethan, please. You're making a scene. We can talk about this at home. There's nothing to talk about, I said. We're done. I looked at Tyler, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. She's all yours, man. Again. Hope it works out better this time than it did with David. Tyler's eyes widened. How did you... Doesn't matter, I said. What matters is I'm not going to be another footnote in the Madison and Tyler saga. I deserve better than that. With that, I walked away, ignoring Madison's calls for me to come back, to listen, and to be reasonable. I'd been reasonable for weeks, ignoring the signs, making excuses for her behavior. I was done being reasonable. I walked straight out of the restaurant into the warm Texas night, loosening my tie as I went. Behind me, I could hear the commotion of voices, Madison's among them, growing increasingly frantic. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove, with no particular destination in mind. I ended up at a small bar on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions and the scotch was cheap. I sat in a corner booth, phone turned off, and tried to process what had just happened. My engagement was over. My 4-year relationship was over. The future I'd planned, the life I'd envisioned, all gone in a single night. The strangest part was the sense of relief that washed over me as I sat there, as if I'd been carrying a heavy weight for weeks, months maybe, without realizing it. The signs had been there all along, I just hadn't wanted to see them. Around midnight, the door to the bar opened, and Ryan walked in. He spotted me and slid into the booth across from me without a word. We sat in silence for a while. How'd you find me? I finally asked. Location sharing's fault, he said. You never turned it off after that camping trip last year. I nodded, making a mental note to review all my digital connections to Madison later. So, Ryan said, that was quite an exit. Too dramatic? No, man, it was exactly right. He signaled for a drink. You should have seen what happened after you left. Despite myself, I was curious. What? Madison completely lost it. Started crying, yelling at Tyler for ruining everything. Her mom tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical. Then Tyler's date showed up. Wait, I interrupted. Tyler had a date? Another woman? Ryan nodded. Apparently he thought this was just a friendly appearance at an ex's engagement party. Did not realize he was supposed to be breaking up the relationship. His actual girlfriend was meeting him there for dinner after. I laughed, a genuine laugh this time. You're kidding. Nope. Tall brunette, model type. She was not impressed with Madison hanging all over her boyfriend. What a mess, I said, shaking my head. The best part was when Patricia, that older lady who seems to know all the dirt, she walks up to Madison and says loud enough for everyone to hear, just like your mother, always wanting what you can't have. Madison's mom looked like she wanted to crawl under a table. I winced, feeling a flash of sympathy for Madison despite everything. That's harsh. Maybe, Ryan conceded, but not undeserved. We drank in silence for a while longer. What are you going to do now? Ryan eventually asked. No idea, I admitted. Go home, I guess. Figure out how to untangle 4 years of life together. You can stay with me and Megan for a while if you need to. Thanks, I might take you up on that. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it back on, out of habit. 17 missed calls from Madison, 32 text messages, 3 voicemails. I showed the screen to Ryan. Don't, he advised. Not tonight. Give yourself some space. I knew he was right, but part of me, the part that had loved Madison for 4 years, wanted to hear what she had to say. Wanted to believe there was an explanation that would make this all okay. But there wasn't, and deep down I knew it. I drove home in a daze, parked in our building's garage, and sat in my car for nearly an hour trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from Madison, from Ryan, from my mother. I ignored them all. Finally, I went upstairs to our apartment. I half expected Madison to be there, waiting to explain, to apologize, to beg for another chance. But the apartment was empty, eerily quiet. I packed an overnight bag, left my keys on the counter, and checked into a hotel near my office. I slept surprisingly well that night, as if my body had been craving the release of finally acknowledging the truth. In the morning, I called in sick to work, something I never did, and tried to figure out my next steps. Around noon, there was a knock at my hotel room door. When I opened it, Madison stood there, eyes red and mascara smudged. How did you find me, babe? I asked, not inviting her in. Ryan told me, she said. Can I come in, please? I stepped aside. She entered and stood awkwardly in the middle of the room, clutching her purse like a lifeline. What you did last night was humiliating, she began. I laughed without humor. That's rich coming from you. Nothing happened with Tyler, she insisted. Something was happening, I said. Maybe not physically yet, but emotionally. You've been cheating on me for weeks. That's not fair, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I've been confused, yes. Seeing Tyler again brought up old feelings. But I never cheated on you. You told your friend he makes you feel alive again, that you're having doubts about our wedding. You spent our entire engagement party with him. What would you call it? She sat heavily on the edge of the bed. A mistake, a momentary lapse in judgment. Ethan, please, I love you. We can work through this. I looked at her, this woman I'd planned to spend my life with, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Why didn't you tell me you were engaged before? I asked quietly. To David? She paled. Who told you about that? Does it matter? You hid it from me for 4 years, Madison. And now I find out you're repeating the exact same pattern, inviting Tyler to break up another engagement. It wasn't like that, she protested. David and I were wrong for each other. We would have been miserable together. And what about us? Are we wrong for each other too? She reached for my hand. I let her take it, but felt nothing at her touch. No, Ethan, we're perfect together. You're stable, kind, dependable. Stop. I pulled my hand away. That's how you described me last night. Like I'm a reliable appliance, not the man you're in love with. Is that really how you see me? As the safe choice? No, she cried. I love you. I do. Just not the way you love Tyler. She hesitated a second too long before denying it, and in that hesitation I found my answer. I'm going to stay here for a few days, I said. I need some space to think. And then you'll come home? She asked, hope in her voice. I don't know, Madison. I honestly don't know. When she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, turning my phone over and over in my hands. Finally, I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in years. Hello, David. You don't know me, but my name is Ethan Miller. I was engaged to Madison Hayes. I think we might have some things to talk about. The next day, I met David Lawson at a coffee shop downtown. He was about my age, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. It was surreal sitting across from the man who had once been where I now found myself. I was surprised to get your call, he said. It's been years since I've heard Madison's name. I appreciate you meeting me, I said. I know it must seem strange. He shrugged. Actually, it feels like closing a circle somehow. What do you want to know? Everything, I said. The real story, not Madison's version. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. We met in college junior year, got engaged senior year. Things were good, at least I thought they were. His story was painfully familiar. Then Tyler came back from his semester abroad, and suddenly Madison was different, distant, irritable. I knew they had history, but she assured me it was over. Let me guess, I said. She invited him to your engagement party. David's eyebrows shot up. How did you know? Because she did the exact same thing to Mubek. Understanding dawned on his face. Ah, history repeating itself. Exactly. So what happened after? She broke it off 2 weeks later, said she wasn't ready, needed to find herself, all that stuff people say when they're too cowardly to admit they want someone else. She was with Tyler within a month. I nodded, feeling a strange solidarity with this man I just met. How long did they last? David laughed. That's the kicker. 6 months. Then he cheated on her, and it imploded spectacularly. She called me after, crying, saying she'd made a huge mistake. Did you take her back? Hell no, he said emphatically. By then I'd realized what a bullet I'd dodged. Madison's complicated. She always wants what she can't have. Once she gets it, she loses interest. It's like a sickness with her. We talked for nearly 2 hours. David had moved on, was happily married with a baby on the way. He showed me pictures of his wife, a pretty doctor he'd met through mutual friends. You know what's funny? He said as we were preparing to leave. I was devastated when Madison left me. Thought my life was over. Now I can't imagine how different my life would be if she'd stayed. I wouldn't have met Sarah, wouldn't have the life I have now. In a weird way, Madison did me a favor. I hope someday I'd feel the same way. I spent the next 3 days in a fog, going through the motions at work, avoiding calls from well-meaning friends and family. On the 4th day, I decided to go back to the apartment to get more clothes. I hoped Madison would be at work. The apartment was empty when I arrived. I quickly gathered what I needed, but as I was about to leave, I noticed Madison's laptop open on the dining table. A notification popped up, an email from Tyler. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that, but something compelled me to click on it. The email was part of a longer thread. I scrolled down to the beginning. Madison to Tyler, 2 months ago. It's so good to hear from you after all this time. Yes, I'm engaged. His name is Ethan. He's sweet and stable. The wedding's in September. Tyler to Madison. Sweet and stable sounds boring. You always needed excitement, Mads. Remember that weekend in Cabo? Still think about it sometimes. Their exchanges grew more flirtatious over time, eventually leading to Tyler 3 weeks ago. I'm coming back to Dallas for a while. We should get together. Madison, I'd love that. Actually, I'm having an engagement party soon. You should come. Tyler, won't your fiancé mind? Madison, he'll deal with it. Besides, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. I felt sick. There were more recent emails, including plans to meet for lunch the day after our engagement party. And then, from this morning, a new exchange. Madison, I messed up. Ethan found out about us. He made a scene at the party and called off the wedding. Tyler, that's rough, but maybe it's for the best. Now we can see where this thing between us goes without the guilt. Madison, no, you don't understand. I love Ethan. He's my future. What we have is just nostalgia, a fantasy. I need to fix this with him. Tyler, wow, so I'm just a fantasy to you? A way to feel young again before you settle down with Mr. Reliable? Nice, Mads. Real nice, Madison. That's not what I meant. Tyler, please. I'm just confused right now. Tyler, Well, let me unconfuse you. I'm not interested in being your backup plan or your walk on the wild side before domestic bliss. Figure your shit out, Madison. I'm done. I copied the entire thread and sent it to myself, then closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. The emails confirmed what I'd suspected all along. Madison's attempt to have one last adventure before committing to me, a man she saw as sweet and stable, but not exciting enough to fully satisfy her. When I got back to the hotel, I called the wedding venue and canceled our reservation. I called the caterer, the florist, the band. I canceled everything. Then I emailed all the wedding guests explaining that the wedding was off. I was surprised by how calm I felt, like I was handling a particularly challenging work project rather than dismantling what should have been the happiest day of my life. That night, Madison called, hysterical. "What have you done?" she screamed. "How could you cancel our wedding without even talking to me?" "I saw your emails with Tyler," I said quietly. There was silence on the other end. "Ethan," she finally said, her voice small, "it wasn't what it looked like." "It was exactly what it looked like, Madison. You've been planning to see him behind my back. You told him what I don't know won't hurt me." "That was just flirting. It didn't mean anything." "It meant something to me, Femme," I said. "And it's over. I'll be by tomorrow to get the rest of my stuff. I'd appreciate it if you weren't there." "Ethan, please." I hung up. The next few weeks were a blur. I found a small apartment closer to my office. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep busy. I avoided social media, knowing that our failed engagement was probably prime gossip fodder. Ryan kept me updated on the essential information. Tyler had apparently lost interest once the chase was over. He'd gone back to New York after just 2 weeks. Madison had been fired from her PR firm. Apparently her boss was friends with one of the partners at my engineering firm, and the story of how she'd humiliated me had made the rounds. It wasn't fair, but I couldn't bring myself to care. "She's been calling around, asking about you," Ryan told me over beers one night. "I hope you didn't tell her anything." "Of course not," he said. "But man, she seems pretty torn up." "She made her choice," I said, signaling for another round. "Multiple times." What Ryan didn't know was that Madison had been leaving messages, sending emails, even showing up at my office once. Each time her desperation increased. She'd made a terrible mistake. She'd never meant to hurt me. Tyler meant nothing to her. We could still fix this. Each time I ignored her or replied with the same message. "It's over." Then, about 2 months after the engagement party disaster, I was surprised when Madison showed up at my office building as I was leaving work. She looked nothing like the polished PR executive I'd known. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Ethan," she said, stepping into my path, "please, just 5 minutes." My first instinct was to walk past her, but something in her expression stopped me. "How did you find me?" "I've been coming here every day for a week," she admitted. "I didn't want to call or text because I knew you'd ignore me." I checked my watch. 5 minutes. There's a coffee shop across the street. We sat at a table by the window, Madison fidgeting nervously with her cup. "I lost my job," she blurted out. "My apartment too. I'm staying with my mom." "I heard about the job," I said neutrally. "I'm sorry about that." "Don't be, I deserved it." She took a shaky breath. "Ethan, I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed something precious. But there's something you should know about me. Something I never told you." "Madison, my father abandoned us when I was 8, she said quickly. Told me he was going for groceries and never came back. Started a whole new family in California that I found out about on Facebook when I was 16. I hadn't known that. Madison had mentioned her parents divorcing, but never the details. "That doesn't excuse what I did to you," she continued. "Nothing does. But I'm in therapy now, 3 times a week, trying to understand why I sabotage every good thing in my life, why I panic when relationships get too real." She looked up at me, eyes pleading. "I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that what happened wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me being too broken to recognize what I had." 3 days later, I was sitting in a neutral location, a coffee shop I'd never visited before. waiting for Madison. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. The confident, polished woman I'd known was gone, replaced by someone thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes and hair pulled back in a careless ponytail. She slid into the seat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." I nodded but said nothing. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. "I've rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my head, but now that you're actually here, why don't you start with the truth?" I suggested. For once, she flinched but nodded. "I deserve that." "Okay, the truth." She took a deep breath. "I was scared, Ethan. Terrified, actually. The wedding was getting closer and everything was becoming so real. This permanent, forever thing that I'd agreed to. And instead of talking to you about my fears, I created a distraction. Tyler. Yes, he reached out at exactly the right moment. Or the wrong moment, I guess. It was like the universe was offering me an escape hatch. A way to feel young and reckless again, before I committed to forever. "So you used him to sabotage us?" She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't see it that way at the time. But yes, that's exactly what I did. And the worst part is, I've done it before. With David, it's a pattern I didn't even recognize until my therapist pointed it out. Your mother mentioned you're in therapy. 3 times a week," she said with a weak smile, trying to understand why I keep destroying the things I love most. I studied her face, searching for signs of manipulation, of the practiced charm she'd always been able to deploy. But all I saw was raw honesty and profound regret. "I'm sorry, Madison," I said. "I truly am. I hope therapy helps you break these patterns. But it doesn't change what happened between us." "I know," she whispered. "I know I've lost you. I just wanted you to understand that it wasn't about you. It was never about you not being enough, or Tyler being better. It was about me being too afraid to accept real love when it was right in front of me." We talked for a while longer. She told me about her therapy sessions, about the patterns she was recognizing in herself, about how Tyler had indeed discarded her once the thrill of the chase was gone. By the end, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Madison wasn't a villain in our story. She was a damaged person who had damaged me in turn. "What now?" she asked as we prepared to leave. "Now we both move on," I said, separately. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I guess this is goodbye then." "I guess it is," I agreed. "Take care of yourself, Madison." As I watched her walk away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, the last remnants of anger and resentment I'd been carrying. The chapter was finally closed. The next few months were about rebuilding. I threw myself into work, earning a promotion and the chance to lead a major project designing a new arts center downtown. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Madison. I started rock climbing, something I'd always wanted to try but never had because Madison found it too dangerous. Slowly, I began to recognize parts of myself that had been submerged during our relationship. My spontaneity, my dry sense of humor, my love of adventure. Madison had always cast me as the stable, dependable one, and over time, I'd started to believe that was all I was. 8 months after her rain-soaked appearance at my apartment, I met Lauren Turner at a friend's dinner party. She was a kindergarten teacher from San Antonio with a quick laugh and thoughtful brown eyes. Our connection was immediate and effortless. No games, no hidden agendas. "You seem surprised every time I say what I'm actually thinking," she commented on our third date. "I'm not used to it," I admitted. "It's refreshing." By our 6th month together, I knew she was special, different from Madison in almost every way, but most importantly in how she approached our relationship, with honesty, transparency, and genuine care. "I've been hurt before," I told her one night as we lay in bed, the moonlight casting patterns on the ceiling. "Badly." "I figured," she said, tracing patterns on my chest. "Want to tell me about it?" So I did. All of it. The engagement party, the emails, the aftermath. When I finished, Lauren was quiet for a moment. "She sounds like she was lost," she finally said. "Not that it excuses what she did, but sometimes people sabotage the good things in their lives because they don't believe they deserve them." I turned to look at her, struck by her compassion for someone who had hurt me so deeply. "You're pretty amazing, you know that?" I said. She smiled. I have my moments. Our relationship progressed naturally, without the drama or uncertainty that had characterized my time with Madison. Lauren was steady, not because she was boring, but because she was secure in herself, in her feelings for me, in what she wanted from life. Almost exactly 2 years after what would have been my wedding to Madison, I was pushing a cart through the supermarket, Lauren beside me, debating the merits of different pasta shapes when I saw her. Madison was at the other end of the aisle, looking tired. Her hair was shorter and she wore minimal makeup. Next to her was a man I didn't recognize, his face set in barely contained irritation as she examined 2 different jars of pasta sauce. Just pick one, I heard him say. They're basically the same. They're not the same, she replied, an edge to her voice. This one has basil and this one has… Whatever, he cut her off. I'll be in the beer aisle. As he walked away, Madison's shoulders slumped slightly. She put both jars in her cart and turned, freezing when she saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the expanse of linoleum and fluorescent lighting. Then she offered a small, tentative smile and started walking toward me. Lauren squeezed my hand. Is that? Yeah, I said. Madison. Ethan, Madison said when she reached us, her voice softer than I remembered. Hi. Here I am, I replied. An awkward silence fell. Madison's eyes flicked to Lauren, then back to me. This is Lauren, I said. Lauren, this is Madison. Nice to meet you, Lauren said, her tone genuine. Madison nodded. You too. Her eyes lingered on our clasped hands for a moment before returning to my face. You look good, Ethan. Happy. I am, I said and meant it. She seemed about to say something else when the man from before appeared at the end of the aisle, calling impatiently, Madison, come on, the game starts in 30 minutes. Madison closed her eyes briefly as if gathering strength. I should go, she said. It was good to see you. You too, I said, surprised to find I meant that as well. As she walked away, Lauren leaned against me slightly. Are you okay? I watched Madison join the impatient man, saw how she straightened her spine and plastered on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I thought about all the twists and turns that had led me from there to here, from her to Lauren. Yeah, I said, turning back to the woman who had taught me to trust again. I'm really okay. We finished our shopping and loaded the groceries into my car. As we drove home to the house we'd bought together 6 months ago, with its small backyard and the kitchen Lauren had fallen in love with, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Still on for basketball tomorrow? I smiled. Some things change, and some stay wonderfully the same. That night, as Lauren and I cooked dinner together in our kitchen, laughing over some silly story from her day at school, I realized something. My real victory wasn't in the words I'd said to Madison, or even in the life I'd built without her. It was in the fact that I'd survived what should have broken me and come out stronger on the other side. What are you thinking about? Lauren asked, catching me staring. Just how lucky I am, I replied, pulling her close. Because sometimes the most unexpected twist in your story isn't the betrayal, it's the happiness you find afterward.